A presentation of the American Philatelic Society. Founded in 1886, the American Philatelic Society is the largest non-profit organization for stamp collectors in the world, with a membership of more than 28,000 from over 110 countries. Czeslaw Slania was the world's finest stamp engraver. Shown here is an engraved self-portrait. Slania's only engraving tools were a handheld magnifier and a burin used to scratch and gouge his soft steel template, making the depth and width of lines to achieve varying degrees of darkness, thus creating images, the picture you see on the stamp. Slania used his engraving skill largely to reproduce, in exquisite detail, existing works of art, sending museum-quality work out into the world in the form of postage stamps. Czeslaw Slania's abilities to engrave ranged from a simple portrait, such as this Belgian stamp depicting the Nobel laureate August Bennett, to the complex engraving of the Swedish stamp Lady with Veil, from a painting by Alexander Roslin. There is a distinct difference in the quality of engraving between the stamps seen here. Side by side with those of another engraver, Slania's true mastery of the engraver's art is clearly displayed. Czeslaw Slania was born October 22, 1921, in Upper Silesia. His lifelong sense of mischief and rebellion, along with his artistic skills, were displayed early. He first tested his skill at age 6 by faking lunch tickets, which worked but did get him into trouble. Though a job with a photographic company enabled him to avoid conscription during World War II, he helped the war effort by engraving false documents for resistance fighters. After the war, he attended Krakow Art Institute, concentrating on small images. He practiced his skills while a student by printing his own completely authentic-looking tickets to the boxing matches he enjoyed. After graduation, he was employed by the Polish Stamp Works. These stamps, by Czeslaw Slania for the Polish Stamp Works, were part of the approximately 55 stamps he engraved, which were issued from 1950 through 1954. Note the Slania name appears with B. Brandt on many of these stamps. Since the end of World War II, the communist regime had controlled Poland with its Soviet style of bureaucratic nonsense. As long as Czeslaw Slania was able to engrave stamps of his choice and receive credit for his work, he could tolerate the political nonsense. On May 23, 1954, the Polish Stamp Works issued souvenir sheets honoring the Polish Philatelic Federation, crediting only B. Brandt, without Slania's name. To add to the drama, 2 different colors were printed, one green printing of 76,562 sheets and a blue one of 11,900 sheets. Shortly after, in 1955, an identical blue sheet appeared with a slightly improved engraving, as noted with more details on the hands of the bugler. These sheets disappeared, but not without the communist authorities suspecting Slania as the engraver, because of the improved quality of the engraving and his access to the printing and paper resources. Rumors were circulated that some of both blue sheets were used as postage in regular mail, constituting a serious offense, especially in a communist country. It was time for Czeslaw Slania to move to a different location. So in August of 1956, he took a trip to Sweden, where he decided to stay, although his mother and sister remained in Poland. Soon after arriving in Sweden, he applied to the Sweden Post, but the post was well-staffed with engravers. Slania worked at a variety of jobs, including dishwashing. He would retouch photographs to supplement his low wages and continue to develop his engraving skills by working on his personal projects. After 3 years of menial labor jobs, a lucky break occurred for Slania when the head of the engraving department of the Sweden Post fell ill. Slania was offered a temporary job finishing some of the man's assignments. He finished these assignments so successfully that he was offered a permanent position at the Sweden Post. Slania wasted no time in producing excellent engraved Swedish postage stamps. In 1972, King Carl XVI named Czeslaw Slania as engraver to the court of Sweden. His many stamp engravings of the royal family portrayed them at their very best. Notice the subtle age differences in his subjects over the course of his 10-year tenure. The Royal Family of Sweden, issues of 1983 and 1993. Shortly after becoming the engraver for the court of Sweden, Slania engraved these stamps in honor of King Gustav VI Adolf, which were issued shortly after his death. Comparing the images in these two stamps illustrates the fact that Slania was not just an engraver, but an artist in his own right. The image of George Washington is just that, a generalized image. General President George Washington. But when Slania engraves a stamp, he makes a portrait of a man, in this case, conveying a genuine image and the spirit of the man who was King of Sweden. When Eisenhower became president, Czeslaw Slania wanted to show his admiration, so he produced and sent a $20 U.S. banknote. The front looked exactly like a regular $20 bill, but on the back, Czeslaw printed in the banner, "To the President of the USA," and D.D. Eisenhower. The FBI and Interpol came calling. They interrogated Czeslaw, thinking that he had a process for duplicating banknotes. In other words, that he was a professional forger. Once they realized the work had simply been done by hand, with ink, the authorities left. But news of this event spread. Soon after, his work became famous, as various countries gave him assignments for engraving both stamps and money. Czeslaw Slania engraved stamps for Australia, Belgium, Ireland, Jamaica, China, Monaco, Singapore, Germany, Denmark, Estonia, and Iceland. He engraved only the ships on these stamps for this Great Britain issue. This issue is one of the few Slania engraving stamps where his name does not appear on the bottom of the stamp. One other issue where his name did not appear might have been the Polish blue email souvenir sheet of 1955, which prompted his departure from Poland. After the Soviet breakup, when Poland became free of the communists, Slania once again began engraving for the Polish stamp works. It had been 38 years since he had engraved a Polish stamp. These later souvenir sheets are truly works of art. In 1997, a St. Adalbert stamp was issued by 4 different countries: Poland, the Czech Republic, Germany, and Hungary, using 4 different engravers. Even though stamps engraved by other engravers were very good, when the Polish stamp is viewed in a side-by-side comparison, the extraordinary ability of Czeslaw Slania is clearly visible. The Lady with the Veil, after a 1768 painting by Alexander Roslin, depicting the painter's wife. Notice the technical quality of the silks, the broken reflections on the pleats, and the expression on the face. Issued July 10, 1972. The newly launched battleship Wasa sunk in the port of Stockholm in 1628. 328 years later, in 1956, it was recovered and restored, along with hundreds of sculptures that had decorated the interior. In 1969, Slania engraved reproductions of some of those gold leaf sculptures for a mini booklet, Great Swedish Coats of Arms. National Museum of Sweden, First Centenary, issued in 1966. One of the oldest museums in the world, it first opened in 1792 in a wing of the Stockholm Castle. The pictured vignette depicts the entrance hall of the Blasieholmen building, where the museum moved in 1866. It is said that Slania hid the word Loja, his pet name for his sister, over the lady in the middle of the staircase. Angermanland, Forest and River, issued 1976, depicts the powerful river Angermanälven, located in central Sweden, which serves as an important source of hydraulic energy, and a vital means of transportation. One may still see tugboats taking the logs along the coast of Angermanland. Begun in 1810, the Gutter Canal took over 20 years to build. It was inaugurated in 1832 and was of great importance to Swedish commerce for nearly 100 years. In 1978, it was taken over by the government for preservation and has become a popular tourist attraction. The locks and the old rotating bridge, originally operated by hand, remain, reminders of 19th century techniques. Hay drying stacks, issued in 1976, illustrates the great wicker screens used in northern Sweden between 1850 and 1900 to dry barley. The Coronation of King Gustav III, from the 1777 painting by Gustav. Illustrating his independence as an artist, Slania used the issuing of this souvenir sheet to highlight his 70th birthday and the tools he used to execute his art. A personalization that is never done, except by this unique master of the engraver's craft. The Shepherdess's Vision, or Duck Maiden, from 1889, painting by Ernest Abram Josephson, issued December 11, 1973. Around the Arctic Circle, Rocket and Northern Lights, issued May 6, 1970. Fisherman's House on the Sun Canal, issued April 6, 1980. These fishermen's houses on the Sun Canal in the heart of the city illustrate the importance of fishing in the Bothian Gulf. Music in Sweden, issued January 10, 1983, commemorative for World Day of Music. The stamp depicts the minstrel Hans Anders, a painting by Anders Zorn. Romeo and Juliet depicts dancers in the Swedish court, in a pas de deux from Prokofiev's famous ballet. Issued November 10, 1975, this stamp was considered in India in 1979 as the most beautiful stamp in the world on the theme of ballet. On Christmas Eve, 1972, Slania finished engraving the start of Vasa ski race in Salin. The figure in the lower left corner is a self-portrait. And the skier immediately to the right of Slania is the leader of the Swedish stamp printing company, Lars-Erik Ewert. The skier in the middle of that group is Finn Andersson, a technician from the stamp company. On another stamp, his mother's image is used for the potato harvester in Västmanland, in the series dedicated to the north of Sweden. Czeslaw Slania's stamp engravings numbered in excess of 1,700. His subjects range through many aspects of the world, from people to boats to wildlife to great paintings to landscapes and on and on. Here are a few examples. Slania's 1,000th stamp engraving issued March 17, 2000, is of an opulent ceiling painting in the Drottningholm Palace, seen at the bottom of the mini-sheet. It was David Klocker Arnstall's Great Deeds by Swedish Kings. Slania's colorful life history may add to our appreciation of his work. He was adventurous, playful, and often daring, certainly aware of his own unique abilities. But about his work, he was an unrelenting seeker of perfection. Czeslaw Slania was a craftsman of great skill, with an artist's eye, hand, and heart. His creations remain among the finest examples of postal art. Czeslaw Slania, the world's finest stamp engraver.